this is too much. I mean, I can't articulate it, what happened, other than this to tell you that it was more than a coincidence.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Spiritually Challenged. I'm Jay Sherrick. I am yet again here with my good writing partner,
David Ron,
and my good friend and neighbor,
Steve.
And we are very fortunate to have with us a fantastic guest, someone I'm very excited about having on the show.
Who is it, Jay?
Carlos, why don't you tell us what your name is?
I'm Carlos Kotkin. I don't know any of you.
Carlos literally doesn't know you guys.
We've met.
We were roommates for like 6 years. You don't remember any of that?
So forgettable.
So, Carlos, tell us how you and I know each other.
I know you because I worked for your father.
Yeah, and my father was a film producer for many decades.
Did he scream at you?
He did not scream at me.
But isn't he a
Not
famous
once.
screamer?
Yeah, he screamed a lot.
But he never screamed at you?
Because Carlos is being polite.
I'm not being polite.
He must
You
have
could
screamed
not
at you.
have worked for my father and not get screamed at.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. The first day I went to work for your father, he screamed louder than I've ever seen anybody scream at anybody, somebody else in the office. The second day that I went to work for your father, I went to pick him up at his house, drove him into work. He asked me, "What did you think of your first day?" And I said, "I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to work for you."
Really?
Yes. And he said, "Why is that?" And I said, "Because I've never seen anybody get as mad as you got at that person." And he said, "Well, you got to understand, I was just about to get on the... Yeah, but you could have just... He was being offered some cake. I love your father. I love your father always. He means so much to me. He did so much for me. He had a temper, as you know."
After you said that to my dad, did he
never
not
yelled at you?
scream around you?
He never.
Why didn't you say that to your dad?
God, I wish you had told me that
When you
I
were
was
6?
Or 3.
Dad, I'm not sure I could be your son. Why is that, Jay? Well, yesterday I saw you really lay into Greg, and I don't know if I can handle that, so... Maybe
I missed my opportunity.
And he would have been like,
It worked.
All right.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, instead I've got so many phobias.
PTSD.
And, I'm just...
I've seen your father very angry many times.
Yeah.
But he never yelled at me.
That's
interesting. So, Carlos, as you know, this is a spiritual podcast. Tell us, what's your spiritual life like? Are you a very spiritual person?
No, I am not.
All right.
I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen a few other episodes. I feel like I'm in between you two.
In terms of your skepticism?
Yes. I don't disregard things, but I also have no idea. So I'm either completely enlightened or I'm an idiot.
Which do you think?
I'm probably an idiot if you ask my daughter. By the way, I told my daughter I was going to be on this podcast. You met my daughter.
Yeah, I love you.
I said, Jay invited me to be on a podcast. We're going to talk about spirituality. And she said, "Oh, you're going to be terrible at that." So she might... She's usually not wrong.
Ellie, right?
Ellie.
Yeah.
So I will say, though, and I think we're going to talk about this, I have felt at times in life that there are more than coincidences. I've gotten very specific experiences where I thought, this is
too much for then a coincidence.
This is too much. Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going to go with this episode. So for many decades, I've mentioned on the podcast a number of times that I spoke to this entity that was channeled through a medium, and they referred to themselves as guidance, and they were kind of brilliant spiritually. They seemed to see everything and kind of know everything. So they had good information, which is where I kind of got all my information.
As brilliant as they were, not a very inventive name.
No.
I didn't know this.
Guidance?
Can I ask you?
know this.
No, I didn't
Simple.
know this. Do you remember the first time this happened? There must have been a very first time when guidance said, "Hey, I need to talk to you."
Well, I didn't speak to them directly. There was a woman named Kathy, and I spoke through Kathy. So the very first time I called Kathy, and she said, "Give me just a minute," and then she said, "What would
Greetings."
That would be
Greetings.
David spoke to them too.
I spoke to them too. Greetings, sweet one. Greetings, sweet one.
Yeah,
and I'd be like, "Ha, greetings."
So guidance. I spent decades speaking to guidance very regularly, actually.
Through Kathy.
Always through Kathy. And Kathy died about 4 years ago.
And guidance died with them.
Well, no, guidance is still around, but
maybe
they don't speak through Kathy. She's less efficient as a medium now that she's dead.
Yeah.
And
shocking.
So I had to do other things, and I guess I created a podcast. I don't know. This somehow got me here.
So you haven't spoken to guidance since?
Well, I speak on the inside.
Right.
And that's a whole different podcast.
Okay.
That's a different episode. But one of the things that guidance would say is exactly what Carlos just said, that there are no coincidences.
I don't know that coincidences is the right word. It's for lack of a better word. It's more than a coincidence sometimes. We talked about my daughter, who you've met. Before she was born, somebody knocked on the door. Answer the door. There's all these boxes. It's everything. Her stroller, her cradle, everything a baby could possibly need all at once came from my dad. And I called him and I said, why? And he said, I had a talk with your daughter, who's still in my wife's belly. I don't know if it was a dream or I don't know. He had somehow had a conversation with Ellie, who told him, I'm ready to go. She's coming very soon. She wants to get the show on the road. She's going to be a writer, is what he said. We'll see.
How old is she?
She's 11 now.
Oh.
And he sent you all this stuff. Is that typical of your father, that he would have that kind of...
It is.
Is your father very spiritual?
You should be talking to my dad.
Well, maybe
we should get him on the phone.
So you grew up in a situation where your father was...
Very much so. He's in tune. He feels like the universe is an energy. It's a force that you can tap into. He likes to talk about it as if it's a radio station that you can tune into, and it'll give you whatever information you need. He said Ellie's coming very, very soon.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So you have everything.
Oh.
My wife went into labor that night, 2 months early.
Wow. 2 months early?
2 months early. And my dad told me everything that was going to happen. He's not a psychic. Sometimes he will get messages, coincidences from the universe. And when it happened, naturally, especially my wife, I didn't tell my wife.
Oh, you didn't tell your wife?
I didn't tell my wife.
I was about to say,
by the way,
did
my
you
dad
suggest
called.
It to her?
My dad called. The baby's going to be 2 months early. I didn't tell her anything. But then she went into labor. She woke me up. It was about 10 o'clock at night. She said, something's happening. What was happening was she was coming.
Right. We
rushed to the hospital. The doctors checked her out. I remember vividly the doctor rushing in. A doctor we didn't know, whatever doctor was on call, just rushed in, looked at my wife for a second, looked at us and said, the baby's coming. Do you have any questions? There was my wife was in so much pain. And I said, is there anything we can give my wife? And she said, unfortunately, there's no time. And then I was so close. I'm glad I didn't, but I was so close to asking the doctor, is there anything you can give me? Because this is a very stressful environment. The only thing that made it not so stressful was that my dad told me that this was happening.
Did he tell you it was going to be fine?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that she just was
Did you trust that?
Yes. Yes. I trust what my father tells me. And so...
You mean even when he has these spiritual...
Oh, yeah.
And they typically turn out to be...
They do.
Well, what else has he said? I mean, is the stock market going to be okay?
No, it's not like that.
What about like on Monday?
It's
Do you
not,
know anything about?
It's
Nothing
not
like
that kind of thing, no. Right. But I didn't worry at all that night because I had the thought, my dad said this was happening, and it is happening.
Wow.
That's amazing. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, that's so... I've been... spiritually adjacent. I've had spiritually adjacent because I don't have this. I don't feel this way. I don't get messages from the universe. Well, I do actually.
Oh, how's that?
In my professional and personal life.
Explain.
I've had professionally, we are all screenwriters except for this loser,
Steve.
All right. Well, let me. So Carlos.
By the way, when you say that, I can hear you. Just so you know, it's fine.
So Carlos,
I'm right here.
Carlos is also an excellent screenwriter. Because we've worked with Carlos, and we've actually worked on a movie together. We
did.
At one point. Yeah. And Steve has not worked on a movie, but that's okay, Steve.
Steve has watched a movie.
Yeah, I've seen a number of movies.
Yeah, there you've seen some. So you say you're not spiritual, and yet you say you've got some spiritual experiences with regard to work and your personal life. What tell us about that?
So professionally, I always wanted to be a screenwriter. I always wanted to work in the industry, and so I wrote an original script. It was brilliant. It was a genius script.
Of course.
And I moved to Los Angeles all the way from San Diego, Steve. And I got here and I discovered that a lot of people had written brilliant scripts, and that nobody wants to read your brilliant script.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Welcome to Hollywood. And so I have to figure out what am I going to do to turn the lights on or keep them on. And I get a job through a friend of mine who's doing. She's, you should do what I do. I said, well, what do you do? She says, I watch DVDs before they come out. This was in the time when DVDs were a thing. And I said, what do you mean you watch DVDs? Yeah, I watch them for quality control purposes. I just make sure that there's nothing wrong. I watch the first DVD, and then they make all the copies. I said, well, I can do that. I went in for an interview.
I could do that.
Anybody can.
That
Anybody can.
sounds
do
like a great job for you.
Finally, as a job, I feel like I could actually do.
A job?
It was right at the height of DVDs.
So you really cashed in on that opportunity.
Anybody can do it. You just need to know how to work a remote control.
Okay, so you have you're interviewing for this job as a DVD previewer,
A DVD watcher, a professional couch potato.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And you have to watch the movies over and over again because you have to listen to all the audio tracks. You have to read all the subtitle streams in all the different languages. You don't necessarily have to speak the language, but you have to see that everything's in sync or that everything's there. Sometimes the audio would drop out. The DVD for Home Alone had audio from beginning to end of Home Alone 2. From beginning to end.
Did you catch that?
I caught it.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
So you saved Home Alone.
I did. I did.
But that should put you in the DVD watching Hall of Fame, I would think.
No doubt.
I don't want to brag, but I kind of was.
So you're killing it on this job.
Killing it on the DVD front.
Wow.
I'm not a professional screenwriter, but I am a professional DVD watcher.
But at the top of the game.
At the top of the game.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I had to fly once to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania to watch a DVD at the plant where they made all the physical copies.
Wow. So
usually it was just in Los Angeles. We'd go to the different facilities where they authored the disc.
But when they needed someone to go to Virginia, you're the guy they called.
The guy who ran the company called me and
Requested you.
tomorrow you're going to Pennsylvania. I thought he was kidding.
Right. Oh, Pennsylvania. Okay.
Yeah.
So I said
Wilkes-Barre,
Virginia.
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I said, Al, you want me because I'm one of the best, right? And he said, no, because you're single. So I just pick up and leave.
Okay, so
right?
not quite as shiny.
They picked me up in Pennsylvania, and they said, you must be one of the best of the best.
And you're
they
like,
said
no.
And I said, no.
I'm
I
single.
said, no, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm here to do a job.
And I'm single. In case
there's any unattached women in Pennsylvania.
There weren't.
Wilkes.
Believe it or not, though, we're heading towards spirituality. I promise you.
Wow. I
don't see it coming.
I don't see it coming at all, but I'm curious.
That's part of the spiritual aspect of this.
I mean, so far, so good.
All right, so you're
say-
killing it in the DVD world.
So you have to watch the movies over and over and over again.
Right.
Like on just a typical day, you go in and Guillaume, the project manager, would say, "Good morning, Carlos. Today you're watching Dances with Wolves 6 times." That's not a joke. That was a normal day.
Couldn't you get everything you needed on one?
Yeah,
movie?
because all the different languages and
you have
stuff.
to watch it in English 2.0, English 5.1. You have to watch the director's commentary. You have all the subtitle streams in English, Spanish, French, whatever's on the disc you're watching. So Dance with Wolves 6 times in one day, totally normal.
That's a normal day.
That's a normal
and
day.
Guillaume has told you that that's your day today.
That's when you walk in. Today you're watching.
Is Guillaume
Dance
a nice
with
guy,
Wolves.
or is he?
He could be. So like The Passion of the Christ, 17 times I watched.
Wow.
Not my record. Mission Impossible 2, 30 times. Is not my record.
Not your record.
Not my record.
30 times.
30
for
times
Mission
Mission Impossible 2.
Wow.
Which, by the way, I went to Australia just for vacation, and I was on a bus going up the Gold Coast, and they said we're gonna watch a movie that was shot in Australia.
Oh my God.
On TV.
Mission Impossible
2, and I shot up out of my seat so fast, and I pointed at the tour guide and I said, "No, we are not."
Did they watch it?
No, we watched Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which is one of the few DVDs I didn't see. So that was
wow.
Yeah,
that's very impressive that you were able to change the
you just
format.
look them in the eye.
Yeah.
And you just make it happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've got powers.
Okay, so my record, and this is where Guillaume wasn't very nice to me.
Wow.
My record is an animated feature about a blue bird in Brazil who can't fly. Rio. Have you seen Rio, Steve?
Yeah, many years ago.
Okay.
In English, I can't remember. I'm going to tell you the version of German it was in.
I'm going to tell you there was no problem with it because I worked on it. Because I watched Rio 87 times.
87
times?
Yes, I watched it for all the countries. And then when they fix an issue, they issue version 2, and you got to start all over and make sure there's nothing.
I saw it in a dialect they only speak in Papua New Guinea.
It was fine.
I found a couple problems.
There was no problem.
There was.
Okay, so why did Guillaume keep giving you Rio?
That was my question.
But wasn't it reasonable? Why would he give it to somebody else once you're the expert on that?
That's what he said.
That's completely
You're on
reasonable.
Guillaume's side.
Yes, I'm not.
No.
If
Yeah.
you are the expert on that movie, why is Guillaume going to move to somebody else?
I don't know why you're being a dick about
This
it.
is Guillaume talking.
Let him tell a story,
It's
Steve.
completely reasonable.
You're channeling
Steve.
Guillaume.
Yeah.
You're channeling Guillaume.
Yeah, let the man
All right.
let the man
speak.
continue with his story. So
Thank you.
you have watched this movie
Every day. Today you're going to be watching Rio. Good morning, Carlos. Today's a Rio kind of day. Good morning, Carlos. Rio.
Would he say it's a Rio kind of day? Was that one of his phrases?
He might have said that.
And
to
they're
me, or
singing
you
in it too, right?
All the birds of a feather.
Oh,
Dun, dun, dun.
boy. Yeah, no, that's rough.
You know that movie.
That's
Oh,
rough.
yeah. I know
that's
that movie.
rough.
So I go in one morning, and again, it's Rio, and I ask Guillaume, why are you doing this to me? Are you mad at me? Did I accidentally eat your sandwich? What is happening?
You call Guillaume out.
Yes.
Okay. And he says what?
Guillaume pulls a Steve. He says, at this point, you know the disc better than anybody. Nobody knows the Rio DVD better than you. It just makes more sense if you keep going. And so I kept going. I did the Rio DVD for all of the countries, which I had never done before. This was the only disc that happened. And I ended up watching it 87 times.
87 times.
I would watch Rio all day. I would go home, go to sleep. I would dream about Rio.
It actually sounds a little bit like a special forces torture or something like that. You know, when they blast Guns N' Roses, at people from outside the building.
Panama.
Yeah, that sounds like
Waco.
that's like a living
like
hell.
A Waco thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We going with the waterboarding?
This might be worse than waterboarding.
The 88th
Have you
viewing
seen
of
Rio?
Rio.
This is horrible that they would do this to somebody.
I was at a party once around this time, and I was telling a young woman what I did. I watched DVDs before I come out and explaining that you had to watch them.
I'm sure that's a really hot pickup line.
Yeah.
When
I
you're
told her that. She said, if I had that job, I would shoot myself in the face.
in the face?
In the face.
Very specific.
Yeah. So things didn't work out with that young lady?
No, it didn't.
Okay.
So anyway, I've had my fill. I think it's months that it went by.
Right.
And around that time, because of that time, I needed an escape. I needed an outlet. And so
something other than Rio.
Yeah, something that was engaging and fulfilling and completely removed. And I through a friend, I got involved in live shows. I started doing live shows. And I never in a million years thought that I would do
like burlesque?
Burlesque. Yeah.
Striptease.
I didn't know I had this
You didn't
talent.
know you had this talent.
And what kind of live shows?
I did comedy shows.
Comedy.
Comedy. Okay.
Yeah.
With your clothes on?
With my clothes on. Well, not always.
Really?
When I first started, no.
That's another story, perhaps.
But I got involved in shows around town, around Los Angeles, and I discovered a show in particular called The Moth.
Yeah, The Moth.
That's a storytelling show.
Yeah.
Do you know The Moth?
I'm familiar with The Moth, yeah.
So people go up and they go on stage and they tell stories from their lives, and there's a different theme every time, and you get judged as if you've been figure skating. And I discovered that I love doing this. I love it, the thrill. It's so exhilarating. I've gone skydiving, and the feeling that you get when the plane is, the anticipation that you feel when the plane is going, that you're going to jump out of the plane, it's the same visceral physical feeling when you do stand-up. When you're just before you go on, just before they call you up, it feels the same way.
But a little less dangerous, perhaps.
Not necessarily.
You're right. Yeah. Emotionally, maybe even more dangerous. Yeah.
So I got up and I started telling, particularly at the Moth, I started telling stories, and this was my outlet. This really helped me get through watching Rio. And I didn't even care. It was kind of, in a way, watching these movies and this particular job helped me get over the fear of doing stand-up, because I didn't care. Yeah. If I didn't do well, I wasn't watching Rio.
Right. So how bad could it be?
Yeah. So after a while, amazingly, some of my material starts getting aired on the radio, which was a big deal.
Because
the Moth Radio Hour.
Like
KCRW.
PBS,
Yeah, KCRW. And that was a big deal. That was the first thing that happened where somebody somewhere thought I was good enough to put on the radio, so I'm still watching I'm still watching DVDs, but this happened. So that was a glimmer of something.
Yeah.
By the way, and if you meet a young lady at a party under these circumstances, you should lead with that other than
Well,
DVDs.
now I can.
Yeah.
Now I can. So I'm still watching DVDs. I'm watching Mr. Popper's Penguins,
Sure.
France.
5.6?
No, that doesn't exist.
Oh, it doesn't. Oh, I'm showing my ignorance.
And I get a phone call. And the phone call is from the president of 20th Century Fox feature film animation.
Oh.
She heard me on the radio.
Wow.
She heard me telling a story about growing up with chickens. I'm an only child. I had 5 pet chickens when I was a kid. They were like the closest. They were siblings. I loved them.
And you were forced to eat
Talking
them?
about them. No.
Oh, no? I just thought that was
I
where
did
it was
a
going.
Different story.
Okay.
So the head of animation, Fox Animation, calls you because she heard your moth thing on the radio.
Yes. And she said that she thought it was funny. She liked my sensibilities. And she thought my voice as a writer might be a good fit for a project that they were developing.
Mm-hmm.
She said, we're thinking of making a sequel to the movie Rio.
No.
Oh my God.
What? She says
No.
that. She says
Yeah.
those words to you.
Those were her exact words. Yeah.
hold on.
Yes. Now look at this. He's
Awesome.
yes.
She said to you on the phone, "We want you to write Rio 2," or there were some
No,
meetings
she
that occurred.
said we're thinking of making a sequel to the movie Rio. Have you seen the first one?
And how did you answer that?
I said yes.
That's all you said.
That's all you said.
What?
Yes.
You said yes, and
I said yes.
and ended it.
Yes, I've seen the first one. She said, great, what I'd like to do is fly you to New York City and have you meet with the filmmakers, with the director, and kick around some ideas, and we'll see what happens.
Wow.
Oh
So,
my God.
who does
what
that?
A job.
But, like, who does that? I don't even understand that. Like, we fight for jobs all the time. Nobody ever calls us and says, I heard you're on the radio.
And they want to fly you to New York.
Business class.
Wow.
So I flew to New York. I met with the director in the East Village. His name is Carlos also. And we talked about the characters from Rio, and I was able to talk about the characters from Rio as if they were family.
And you did
Because
not
they were.
reveal at any
No.
point why you were such an expert. Okay. Sorry.
They don't know this story.
Okay.
So what happened? So you meet with the directors.
And I talk with ultra confidence, just like Blue and Jewel should do this, and I think Nigel this and that, and I just
And did you get the job?
I got the job. I
You
wrote
got the
Rio
job.
too. That
You
was
wrote
my
Rio
first
too.
screenwriting.
And
gig.
you wrote the movie.
I wrote the movie.
Now, here's my
name's
question.
on the movie.
Did you keep
the
your
craziest story.
DVD watching job, and did you have to then watch your movie 87
It's a
times?
good question.
It is a good question.
Yes. And the answer is?
The answer is that it did go through the company, and I thought for sure that I was going to have to watch that another 87 times. I thought this was one and done. This is not the start
You
of my
kept
career.
the job?
I didn't keep the job.
Oh, okay.
I didn't keep the job. I told Guillaume was the project manager.
Uh-huh.
There's a guy who owned the company named Al,
Uh-huh.
and I told Al I need some time off because I'm going to write Rio 2. And he said, that's amazing. That's fantastic, Carlos. During the course of writing Rio 2, it all happened all at once in 2011. I sold a book to Penguin at the same time. So I told Al I need a little more time because I have to write this book for Penguin while I'm writing Rio 2. And then we sent the manuscript through my reps to the all the networks, and we pitched it,
Right.
and we sold it. And so suddenly I got hired to write a pilot based on my book, and I told Al I need a little more time because now I'm also writing a
Because you're
pilot.
thinking you really still want this DVD watching job?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Al said, come here, Carlos. He got it from his desk. I'm in his office. He's, come here. I've been watching DVDs for 10 years. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
10 years I watched DVDs.
You had that job for 10 years?
A decade. I thought I'm going to do this job for a year at the most, and then I'll be a screenwriter.
Such is
It'll
life.
take me a year to become a screenwriter.
Yeah.
And it took me 10 years of watching DVDs. He gets up. He says, come here, Carlos. Gives me a hug. He's never given me a hug in 10 years.
Right.
And he says, you're not coming back. And so far,
So
He's
far,
been
you're
right.
since 2011, he's been right.
Did you keep in touch just in case you want to
Yeah.
come back? Yeah.
Yes.
Do you do like
of course.
any sort of like I don't know family vacations with Guillaume?
No.
You haven't.
Guillaume was a
done that?
vessel. Guillaume was a
Yeah.
vessel.
Wow.
That's an amazing story.
So that started.
So, but you think, on some level, you feel like the universe aligned to have you watch Rio 87 times because it positioned you perfectly for when this opportunity came along.
It didn't happen on any other DVD in the 10 years that I worked there. There was no other disc that I had to watch that many times or do all the countries. It was just that one.
So how do
That
you, and how do
seems-
you how do you explain that?
I
How do you
don't.
make sense of it?
I can't.
Have you asked your dad?
Just I should.
Yeah.
So do you ever talk to your dad about this? Like,
I don't know that I've had a specific conversation about that, but I mean, I can't articulate it, what happened, other than to tell you that it was more than a coincidence.
Do you think it is at all possible that, having watched it 87 times, that subconsciously there was something about your story about chickens that had the voice of this movie you'd been watching 87 times?
I suppose anything is possible.
But there's no rational sense that you have.
I certainly didn't have that conscious thought.
Right.
David, how do you make sense of this? Like, what is it? Just a crazy coincidence?
My dad would go, yeah, it's a coincidence. Yeah.
Why?
And that's that.
But that's it's a crazy coincidence.
It's a crazy coincidence,
Yeah.
but that's a coincidence, you know. I can't explain that. It's certainly phenomenal. I mean, essentially you're saying that the universe, just sort of like guiding Carlos into a place where he can fulfill his destiny.
Yeah.
I feel that way.
Yeah.
And I felt that way in the instant when she asked me if I had seen the first one. I say yes, and mostly I say yes, telling myself, this is why. That's why.
That's why I had to watch it 87 times?
That's why I watched it
in preparation
87
for this.
times. Yeah. It made sense all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why.
Right. Well, but I have that experience in life all the time. I mean,
I think we all do.
Yeah, it seems like when I look back at my life and I go, oh, if I had met this person and this person, it put me in exactly the right place to, you know, and that there's some sort of like, wow, I got all these little pieces.
When you look back at your life and you say, oh, I never would have met Jay had I not, like, that's different than what he's saying. His experience is in the moment crazy, right? I mean, like, because I don't meet Jay and Jay says, hey, let's try writing something. And I go, holy shit, that's fucking nuts. But you watch Rio 87 times and someone calls and says, I want to hire you to write
it's just
Rio
a
2.
Version of the same story, which is you get all these pieces in your life that add up to the thing that you are meant to be traveling in. It doesn't have to be so glaring and obvious like that, but it can just...
But it's pretty cool that it's so glaring and obvious.
Yeah, I think
that's why it's a story.
Sometimes the universe steers us.
Right.
I believe that.
Did you ever tell Guillaume about this, especially since you'd had this slight
argument? They know because the disc came through the company.
But that's the only...
The disc came through and has Carlos's name.
Did he literally look and said, oh...
No, but some people at the company did.
Yeah.
They ended up working on it, and that's how they found out why it wasn't there anymore. So I feel like in the same way that the universe sort of steered me towards writing Rio 2, that's my professional life.
Right.
The same thing happened in my personal life. And at the same time. It was very strange. 2011 landmark watershed year for me. So ever since I became interested in females, I wanted to get married.
Wait.
In high school, I wanted to get married.
Really?
I don't know.
Wait, in high school, you knew you wanted to get married someday? You wanted to get married that day?
If I could have, I would have gotten married that day, as soon as possible.
That's pretty
unusual.
Yeah,
that's
it is unusual.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Even at the time, I knew it was weird.
Right.
But I didn't want to.
Because even as I was getting married, I was thinking, I don't want to be getting married.
So at the time, you're a high school kid, and you're going, I really want to get married. I know that's weird, but that's the way it is.
That is it.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to start sharing my life. And it didn't happen. I didn't get married in high school, or the short time that I was in college, or in my young adult life. I went on more dates than all of you combined. I promise you.
I believe
no doubt. Everybody in this room, I've been out on the most dates, and I wanted to go on the least dates.
Yeah.
But I would say yes to everything. I wanted to find my wife, and it was just like, waiting for Godot. I think does Godot never show up?
Yeah.
Does Godot? I don't think Godot ever shows up.
Okay,
Godot
that's
never
the whole spoiler alert.
That's the whole
Sorry.
point.
Sorry.
Your wife.
My wife was not showing up,
and
I was going on date after date after date, and my book that I sold ended up being a dating memoir about all the terrible dates that I've been on. But that was another. Oh, thank goodness I went on all those dates, because now I can write this book.
That was another fortunate
another thing. So one of those dates was a blind date with a woman who was actually blind that my mother set me up on.
Oh.
She was in San Diego.
A blind date.
A blind date.
Yeah.
She called me. She said, I have a friend who has somebody your age who's looking to meet people. She's funny. She's smart. She's independent. She's blind. Is that okay? I said, yeah, that's fine. I'd never gone out with a blind person. I'd never interacted with a blind person before. She was in San Diego. I'm in Los Angeles. I drove to her, obviously. And I had spoken to her on the phone. Very nice conversation. Sounded good. We make plans to have dinner. I drive 100 miles to San Diego to go on this blind date. I get there, and she had one of those apartments that you can just walk right up to, and you could see the windows, and there was no lights on.
Oh, God.
It was nighttime, and I immediately assumed that she wasn't there. I was so ticked off. I was like, we had this conversation, we made plans, and then I remembered, I knock on the door, lights go on, dog starts barking. She opens the door, and she looks right at me, right like the way I'm looking at you, into my soul.
Yeah.
And I think, for a second, maybe she can see at least a little. And so I asked her, can you see me? And she smiled, and her eyes go upward, and she says, no, I'm blind. And I said, you were just looking right at me. And she smiled again. She says, lucky shot. She was super cool. Go in, sit down. How was the drive? Good. Do you want to touch my face? That was my opening line, because in the movies they do that.
By the way, that's my opening line in every day.
Yeah. You want to touch
David
my face?
uses that one. Yeah.
I say that at the start of every podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, she says, no, I don't need to touch your face. No face touching. We go out on the date with her dog, Helen, named after Helen Keller.
Sure.
And it's fine. We have an immediate friendship vibe, almost like brother, sister.
Yeah.
No romance there at all.
Right.
But it was interesting.
She was just physically unattacted to you?
Yeah. She ended up touching my face.
Tell.
She touched my face.
She doesn't need to touch your face.
She's like, this isn't going to work out.
Right.
And so I drive back that night from San Diego to Los Angeles, 100 miles. I'm so frustrated. I'm sad. I'm upset because I want to stop going on these dates.
And get married.
It's like watching Rio.
Yes, it is.
It is.
It is. And I remember vividly being in the car on the way back to Los Angeles and thinking, how much longer do I have to do this? How am I going to find my wife? Because it seems like it's never going to happen. And I can't picture in my mind how it's going to happen. I've done everything I can think of. I've written a book about it. How do I find, when does it happen? I was so upset in that moment on that drive. And then 2 years later, I went to the Moth, and the theme was inspired. And I told the whole story of that night about going on the blind date with the blind woman. I was the fourth storyteller of the night. There's 10 that are randomly drawn out of a bag. The last storyteller of the night, the 10th storyteller, is a woman named Hazel, who is my friend.
Oh.
I didn't know she was even there. It was dark. There was 200 people. I wouldn't have known. I would have left that night had she not gone up.
Yeah.
I would have never known that she was there. Hazel goes up. She's with her friend Erin, who's just there to watch the show. She didn't put her name in.
Right.
When I find out later, when I get called up as the fourth storyteller, Hazel turns to her friend named Erin and says, this guy, he always wins. She doesn't say, oh, I know this guy. He's my friend. He's friends with my husband. I've known him a long time. She just says, this guy. So I go up. I tell the story of the blind date. I sit down. Last storyteller of the night is Hazel. She goes up, tells her story, and that's how Hazel's here. I'm going to say hi to her after the show.
Right.
She doesn't win because I win, Steve, because I've won every time I went up.
Of course.
Lights go up. Hazel and Erin come over to me, actually, and I say hi to Hazel, and then she introduces me to Erin, and I immediately fall in love with Erin. Just very striking, and I want to share my life with her.
And you tell her that, right?
And I don't tell her that. Because I've tried
said,
that before.
do you want to touch my face?
I knew none of those things would work.
Right.
So she says, I enjoyed your story. I said, thank you. We shake hands, and that's it.
Right.
But I really like her immediately. But I also see that she's friends with
But
Hazel.
but Hazel's also very, very angry at you because you always win.
Yeah.
Like you have to navigate that also.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So I decide, I think about it, I should call Hazel and get Erin's number and ask her out. But then I thought all we did really was shake hands. And so it seemed kind of superficial. Like, how do I do this? Like,
right.
I like the way you shook hands with me. You'd like to have dinner sometime. It didn't seem...
Yeah, your grip felt right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It didn't seem right.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Steve.
Well, why can't you just call and say, I enjoyed meeting your friend? You have to have like a sequence of reasons?
It just felt too superficial to me.
So what happened?
So I thought about it. How do I have a conversation with her, and then I can ask her out after we've gotten to know each other a little bit? Right. And I said, I know what I'll do. I've never done this before. I'll put together a comedy show, my own show. I'll produce it myself. I'll get a venue. I'll get the lineup. I'll get all the audience
to
come.
And then you'll invite Erin.
And then I'll invite Erin. Yeah. And I'll be amazing again. She'll fall in love with me.
Yeah.
After the show, we'll have a genuine conversation.
And then you can ask Hazel to set you up with Erin.
Then I could just ask Erin out.
Oh,
but I don't need Hazel.
Wow.
So in the moment, this seemed like a more efficient plan than saying to Hazel, hey, can you give me Erin's number?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
So that's you create a comedy show to invite Erin to come so that you can ask her out.
Yes. And it was very hard work it turns out, to produce a comedy show.
Yeah.
To get the venue, to get the word out, to get the lineup. Some people drop out. It was a whole thing.
How did you invite Erin?
So I called Hazel and I said, hey, I'm doing a comedy show and I'm trying to pack the house. And so can you bring Erin? Your friend Erin. Is that her name, Erin? And she says, why do you want me to invite Erin? Because I'm trying to pack the house and she seemed nice. I have lots of nice friends. Why do you want me to bring my nice friend
Hazel
Erin?
saw through it.
Yeah.
It's such an elaborate plan.
You like her.
I can't imagine what Hazel was thinking. This guy is
like, just ask her out. What's up?
She said, you like her. You like her. I said, yes, I like her. Please don't tell her that. Just bring her to the show. So then Hazel has lunch with Erin, and she says, you remember that guy that told the story about the blind date? He's doing a show next Saturday or whenever it was. You want to come with me? And she says, oh, I can't. I have plans.
Oh, God.
Yeah, which I always knew was a possibility, but I thought the universe would work with me.
With you?
Yeah.
Well, the universe might be telling you to switch the date if you're
So what do you do? She's got plans.
So Hazel says to Erin, you need to change your plans.
Oh,
because he specifically asked you for you to be there because he likes you.
Oh.
And she responded she was very excited to hear that.
Oh.
She had to catch her breath.
Wow.
And I know this because Hazel called and told me.
And said that.
She said she likes you. Yeah, don't say anything.
Your plan is working.
I didn't tell you, but she was very excited to hear that you invited her. So the night of the show, it's at Flappers in Burbank, and we packed the place. There was like 200 people in the main room. I'm standing by the entrance, and Erin walks in by herself without Hazel because Hazel's parking the car. And I have to catch my breath. I'm so nervous.
Yeah.
And I'm so nervous I decide to play it super cool.
Yeah.
Ultra cool, like too cool.
Yeah.
I pretend like I don't remember her.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I said, hey, aren't you Hazel's friend? Weren't you with the...
What are you doing here?
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Exactly. But the thought bubble is, I've arranged this entire event.
Yes.
For you. For you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Erin pretends not to remember me. And she goes, oh yeah, the blind thing. But her thought bubble is, you specifically
asked me, and now you're bullshitting.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God. It's like a Shakespearean comedy.
Yeah. So she sits down, we do the show, it's great, I'm great, everybody's great, fun time. Then we sit down afterwards at the bar there at Flappers, and we have a genuine conversation, and we get, where are you from, where did you go to school, blah, blah, whatever we talked about. And then at the end, I said, hey,
you want to touch my face?
Would you like to go out? No, past that.
Yeah.
But I asked her if she would, then I felt comfortable asking her if she would like to go out. And it turned out that we lived a block away from each other. I lived on 4th and she lived on 5th in Santa Monica. So we probably saw each other.
Sure.
You know? And so she said yes, and we went out. Actually, yeah, we went out, our first date. I took her to a restaurant at a hotel, and we went up there, and we couldn't hear anything. It was so loud. There's so many people, and I said, after dinner, if you want to just go back to my place so we can actually hear each other. And she said yes, and I was so panicked. I couldn't believe that she said yes. So we went to my apartment, sitting on my couch. I'm so panicked. I just, because I liked her so much.
Right, yeah.
I didn't know what to do or what to say. And so I finally said...
Do you want to watch Rio?
No, I said, do you want to watch one of my other shows?
Oh.
Yeah, I said, I have more shows of mine on video. Do you want to...
comedy shows.
Yeah, do you want to watch one of my comedy shows? And she said, okay. And I pulled up on YouTube, And
you basically panicked because you didn't know what else to do.
Yeah,
So you're like, do you want to watch one of my comedy shows?
Right. So we sat on my couch watching me. She's
Wait,
sitting right next to me. Total silence, just complete stone face, not loud, not moving. We're just sitting there.
Oh, it's awful.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Oh.
And I said, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And I paused the video and I said to her, you probably feel really self-conscious sitting next to me while we're watching this, so I'm going to go. So I left my apartment. I set the timer for 10 minutes. I went for a walk.
And what happened when you got
Came
home?
back in 10 minutes.
And
She was
she's
still
still
there. She was still there.
That's a huge.
That's
That's a
what I
huge
knew was
win.
going.
Yeah.
This is going good. She's still
Right.
there. I sat down and she said, that was good. I have to tell you, this is the weirdest date I've ever been on. And I was encouraged by this because she called it a date.
Right. So you're saying it's a
So
date.
you're saying it's a date. So we officially made it a date, and we got married almost exactly a year later.
Wow.
Yes, I will now take questions.
It's a fantastic story. I mean,
But
really.
you
Yeah.
met her as a result.
As a result of going out with the blind woman, I was planting the seed of meeting my wife. I had no idea. I wasn't going to go that night.
So all these incredible stories and all these coincidences, all these sort of pieces fitting into place, your feeling is in some way the universe is guiding you to be the version of Carlos that you were destined to become.
I think so, and I think that applies to all of us, even if we don't want to believe that. I think we all have.
So even
stories
if David
like that.
doesn't believe it, he's just wrong, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because you were pointing to David when you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
And have you, just out of curiosity, given what you believe is spiritual guidance, coincidences, however you describe them, has that sort of changed your, or do you just sort of see the universe is going to help you figure out where you need to go?
I feel like I worry a little bit less.
Yeah.
Because somehow or another, even when I think it's not working out, it's going to work out.
It's actually just working out. You can't
Right.
see it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't
Right.
see the...
Do you have that feeling even when bad things happen?
Yes,
Like
my
it's
mother,
okay?
my mother, who is from Mexico, which is why I'm named Carlos. My
Right. I was
father's
wondering
from
about
here.
that. Yeah.
My father's from here. He met her on vacation and brought her back as a souvenir.
Yeah. Yeah.
She says in Spanish,
Some
no
people buy sombreros.
Yeah, my mother likes to say, "No hay mal que por bien no venga." There is no bad from which good doesn't come. So even when something bad is happening, something good ultimately will.
You have such spiritual parents.
I do.
You say you're not spiritual, and yet here you are basically kind
Lecturing
of,
us on spirituality.
Yeah. So,
I think perhaps
yeah,
you don't
it's-
know yourself that well.
So like I said, either I'm fully enlightened or I'm totally ignorant.
let's go with fully.
I like fully enlightened, yeah, because you have established a set of beliefs and you're living within that set of beliefs and it makes sense to you and it's not explainable physically, so I would call you spiritual.
And also, I
I'll
think,
take it.
Yeah.
I think
you should be running this podcast.
I think someone needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that point of view, which you say you have moved towards more and more in the course of your life, which is there's some reason this is happening, and if I just flow with it and go with it, something good will come of it, as your mother said. I think that's a very evolved point of view. I mean, I'm trying to get to that.
I think that coincidence is not the right word for it. I think coincidences is like you meet somebody who has the same birthday. Oh, that's cool. I was born that. But this kind of stuff, I don't know what you would call it, but it's more than a coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence seems random and just accidental, where this
And that
to
does
you,
exist, obviously, but this is more pointed.
purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just makes sense in a way that is beyond accident, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Super cool, Carlos.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Fantastic.
having me.
Yeah, it was so fun. Your stories are so entertaining, and you have this wonderful spiritual quality that is very grounded and practical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to do some looks at the camera regarding him, and you can cut it in whenever you want.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. I don't know how those are going to play on Apple Podcasts where we don't have video, but
You too.
Can we do something where I have tears, like
Yeah,
streaming
yeah.
down my cheeks?
Can we get some tears for Steve?
Fake tears.
All right.
That was great.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much, Carlos. We really appreciate you being here on Spiritually Challenged.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Spiritually Challenged on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.